Hello. So, last year I wrote an animated series, and since then it has been funded, and now we're right in the middle of animation production. It's all very exciting, but I wanted to focus specifically on... To explain a little bit more about the series, it's a 7-episode season where each episode is 6 minutes. It's called Bloke of the Apocalypse. It's coming out October of 2025 this year. And I'm excited for people to see it, and I hope everyone likes it. I learned a lot from writing this show, and I want to share my, I don't know, I'm not an expert, not expertise, but like, yeah. So, as a creative, and I'll speak for the rest of us, we're pretty at finishing things before deadlines. Thankfully with the show, when I was writing it, I had a very strict deadline because, you know, we're going to be going into production afterwards. Nothing gets done without a deadline. So set yourself a deadline, especially for something like writing, which takes a lot of brain power and a lot of discipline. I think it's very important to have an end date, or, you know, some sort of arbitrary day that you have to be finished whatever project you're working on by. Without it, you kind of spin your wheels, you kind of get distracted by other things. So set a date, and in the past, I've also, alongside setting a date, I've also tied that date to maybe it's sort of a application for a funding grant, or maybe it's some sort of opportunity where the deadline is a specific date, especially for writing where it takes a lot of discipline and brain power. And it really kind of lights a fire under your ass and gets you going. For me, it was super helpful knowing the end of the story before jumping into the start. When I was getting into this project, I kind of had the story as one big lump and one big block. And then I kind of reverse engineered it into the episodes and parceled it up. So that was helpful in terms of structure, to have it be one story, and I wasn't thinking about episode to episode. And even just physically seeing your story, we did it on a whiteboard, and I could visually see where the story was going. You know, whiteboard's a good idea, index cards are very helpful, they're kind of the classic, where you lay out all the beats and it looks, you know, looks all pretty. Whatever you can put on your wall to look at every day, because the more you look at it, the more you think about it, the more you can change and improve it. Maybe, who knows? So really flesh out where you want your season of TV to go before putting pen to paper or putting fingies to keyboard, because you'll thank yourself. And then all of this goes into my next point, which is, when I was writing my show, I obviously had a team of people, so it was great to be able to bounce the scripts off them and get this other perspective. And typically writing is very solitary, so it was nice to push these scripts out on people, bounce off other creatives, and get other opinions on them, because it's very easy to be tunnel visioned when you're working on something by yourself. But then on the other side of that, it's very important to be careful about how much you're taking on board in terms of feedback. It's very easy to take a whole lot of opinion, and that has a chance to water down your original project. So be very picky about what feedback you are going with, and that means to really be specific about what you're choosing to you know, adjust in your script per what other people are saying, as opposed to taking everything on board and changing the project. So yeah, talk to people about your scripts, ask them what they're doing. You know, it becomes a sort of give and take. Me personally, I'm living at the moment in a flat with a bunch of other film students, and so it's nice because we bounce everything off each other, and it's great because we get to inspire each other and then motivate each other and critique each other. One thing I've found when writing is it's very easy when you have a specific person in mind. And I think it's very valuable to kind of use archetypes and people in your life to inform who these characters are and to inform what they say. And maybe mapping someone you know in reality to one of these characters in fiction, it will make them richer because there's all these specificities that are very hard to capture without having this sort of reference. With my project at least, it's a very personal story set in a zombie apocalypse, so there's a fantastical element, but I purposely made it was, you know, it's the write what you know thing, so I made the show center around a character who's very similar to my dad. And so every time I go back home and see my dad, my family, I get fresh inspiration. It's evergreen, you know. It continues to inspire me, and I know him so well, obviously, because he's my dad, that I can be very particular about who the character is and steal all these components of my dad and his life and his demeanor and use it for the character. It just makes things a little bit easier, and you don't have to do that for every character. Maybe it's a random obscure reference or an obscure person that you maybe don't know as well as someone in your family, but that still has had an air about them that would be perfect for a story. And so I've got this fully formed reference for what I'm writing. So it makes writing the dialogue easier, it makes writing their wants and needs easier because I know this person who is the character essentially. Yeah, you know, it gives your character depth, it makes them more three-dimensional, I think. So try and use people in your real life to inform who your characters are, and it will hopefully enrich your scripts. Write exactly what you know and be very specific to who you are and be particular about it. And yeah, so those are just my tips and tricks. I tried to remember things that aren't exactly referenced or instructed as much, you know, because there's so many screenwriting, 10 screenwriting tips and tricks. But I tried to go with more obscure, weirder, smaller things, the more minute details I noticed while writing and what helped me. Writing's not flashy, it's just whatever works for you. I wrote this, even though it was fully funded production, I just wrote the whole show in my room. And even before we got funding, when I wrote the first couple of episodes, it was just me writing a story and having fun with it. You know, every screenwriter has talked about these ad nauseum, so who knows. Goodbye.